Ready? Get set.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to Romper Room. Yay! It's Sunday. It's Romper Room Day. Yay! Sorry, Romper Room is about 2 days away. Welcome to Greenkill Gallery presents Calling All Poets every second Thursday here at beautiful. I just learned this is Midtown Kingston. I know I've been saying downtown Kingston or uptown Kingston. It's actually Midtown. Who'd know? But I want to thank everybody here in the audience. Make some noise so everyone knows you're here. I want to thank the people out there in live stream land for joining us this evening. We have one new capper and the founder of and one longtime supporter of CAPS reading for us tonight. Calling All Poets is in its 24th year, going on 25 in next March, and we'll tell you more about that in a little while. But I want to thank Dave Shell and Greenkill Gallery for having us here now for the last 2 years. It might even be longer, but who's keeping track? But I mean, you can go up and see what we do. It's just a beautiful thing. And for any artist, I mean, whatever discipline you happen to choose or follow, or the discipline that calls you, this is the place to come and show it off or do your thing, because Dave's made a very communal and comfortable spot here for artists of all kinds. So a hand for Dave on that one. Thank you, Dave. Wow, we got a lively audience here tonight. All right, so our three featured poets tonight are John Dorsey, Jim Eve, and Rebecca Shimeda. And they're each going to read from whatever the hell they want to read from. And they can even read the newspaper if they want. As long as it's not in monotone, everything's fine. Our first featured reader for this evening is our CAPS virgin, so I want to welcome him. And John Dorsey lived for several years in Toledo, Ohio. He is the author of several collections of poetry, including Teaching the Dead to Sing, The Outlaw's Prayer by Rose of Shannon Press, 2006. Sodomy is a City in New Jersey, goddamn right it is, American Metal Books, 2010. Tombstone Factory, Epic Rights Press, 2013. Appalachian Frankenstein, GTK Press, 2015. Being the Fire, Tangerine Press, 2016. And Shoot the Messenger. Hey.
That's right.
Hey. I could be considered the messenger, you know.
It's coming, Mike.
Thank you. All right. That's from Red Flag Poetry 2017, Your Daughter's Country, Blue Horse Press in 2019. Which Way to the River, Selected Poems 2016 to 2020 from OAC Books 2020, obviously. And Afterlife Karaoke, I like that title, Crisis Chronicles Press 2021. And Sundown at the Redneck Carnival, Spartan Press 2022. His work has been nominated for Pushcart Prize, Best of the Net, and the Stanley Hanks Memorial Poetry Prize. He was the winner of the 2019 Terry Award given out at the Poetry Rendezvous, and he may be reached at, and that's where my printer died, so you're going to have to tell him that one. John Dorsey, everybody.
I had cancer surgery about 3 months ago, and so I canceled every reading except this reading. So I just want to say thank you to Mike, and thank you. I want to say thank you to Mike, and thank you to my friends Bill and Donna who are here, and to Becky. Let's see here. All right. I'm going to start with a poem by the late Scott Weinberg, and if you don't know who Scott is, you should. He's one of my best friends, and he passed away in 2011. But in 2005, he wrote a poem called Outlaws in the Sun, which involved a fictional dog named Sparky. And so I told him, hey man, that's a great poem, you should write more of those. So he worked on a whole book of Sparky poems. And this is a collaborative book that he and S.A. Griffin and I did together. And so it's got a Sparky poem, and I'm gonna read this. It's called Sparky Just Has to Ask the Following Questions. Sparky has trouble with big time sports. Every time an athlete does his or her job right, they stand in front of the mic, they say, I want to thank God. Sparky doesn't get it. If you truly do go that route, then it's only fair and good that you thank God just as much when you strike out with the bases loaded, when you throw the big bad interception. I want to thank God for allowing me to drop this routine fly. Sparky keeps waiting to hear. Turn up the volume, doggy. Maybe change the station. Sparky claims he's okay. I guess I expect too much. Take me out for a walk, Scott. I feel like a shit coming on. Okay, but do me one small thing. Yeah? When you're all done, thank God for allowing you to move your bowels. Christ, let it rest. Okay, buddy, let's go outside and raise the dead. You know, I know this is a caveat, but that's one of the best poems about a fictional dog I've ever read in my life. My friend Bill Roberts and his daughter Elizabeth, who were both here, were kind enough to work on this little book for me. It's Essential Heartbeats for Fried Chicken Nights, which is a Bottle of Smoke press. And so I'm going to kind of move around a little bit in terms of where I read from. But I'm going to read a poem or two from here. And if you've never had Gus's world-famous fried chicken, you're a Philistine. And you really should. It's the best fried chicken in America. But this is from my friend Larry Gaywell. It's called Eating Gus's World-Famous Fried Chicken with Larry Gaywell. This is life how it's supposed to be. Larry with long dangling silver mop of hair, just off the highway, resting his arm on a rainy Friday afternoon, talking about Alaska, Denver, Spain, and Tokyo. And this garage has never felt so small. A leaky freighter of all the things I'll never do now. As hummingbirds wait out the weather by my window, we run into town for stamps and chocolate ice cream. My friend Brian Felster's life began and ended on a boat in Alaska in 1982, before he died at 48, surrounded by love. Richard Hugo laughed by a stream with Buddha on a deserted Montana hiking path in the middle of the afternoon. Larry's glasses are drenched in rain as we come in from outside. He is a Springsteen song, always born to run, and he will never die or run out of chicken. I was just going crazy a few months ago with the cancer, and so I was with my friend Justin Ham, who, Justin, if you're listening to this, I love you. And so I wrote this poem. It's called Driving Through Mount Sterling, Missouri, which I live about 10 minutes from there. There will be no barbecue for us today. The cold air pressing against the windows of your car. As I lay my head back and close my eyes, parked out in front of the gas station, dreaming about the deli sandwiches inside, and your daughters watering my spider plants after I'm gone, and the axes and snow shovels stacked neatly against the window, next to loaves of off-brand bread, wishing someone would come up from behind and bury one in my skull before cancer that sucks all of the air out of a fine spring day. I have another fried chicken poem, which I'm going to read. But before I get into that, my aunt, she passed away about 5 years ago. She was 63. She looked ancient because she smoked 6 packs of cigarettes a day. And I wrote this for her. And she suffered from mental illness. I'm not sure what kind, but my dad was afraid to even have her in our house. But it's called Poem for My Aunt on Her Birthday. At 63, you look 80. Sound like Darth Vader if they sold menthol cigarettes on the Death Star. Swollen veins, a cough as big as a mushroom cloud. You were young once, before diabetes and mental illness, before time became just another broken heart, in a shabby apartment next to a rundown bowling alley in a yearbook full of ghosts. You were young once, put up for adoption, mother hit by a car like a speeding bullet, father drunk and soon long gone. You were young once, engaged in cutting hair in neighborhood salons around Pittsburgh. Your sunset was an Italian song, with love given up and taken away. One sister married, the other off to college. You stayed home into middle age, clock ticking in the hallway, watching your hair turn gray and become a spider web. But you were young once. God damn it, you were so young once. And I'm gonna read a few poems that both show respect to and make fun of the people of Missouri. I did this book. It's called Sundown at the Redneck Carnival, which is the title poem is about the pool hall where I live, and I may read that, but there's another piece in here I like, so I'm gonna go with that first. All right. In Bell, Missouri, where I live, they have a town fair every year, and what you have to understand is the population of this town is 99% white, and so I was walking around one day, and I saw this pregnant girl wearing a Tupac Shakur t-shirt, and I was like, man, where the fuck did she get that shirt? So, this is my tribute to her. It's called East Coast, West Coast in Southern Missouri. Excuse me. A high school girl in thick black glasses and a baby bump barely concealed by a second-hand Tupac t-shirt stands on the front of her lawn. As a volunteer fireman who didn't make it past the 9th grade throws candy in her direction. With a pitching arm that will never take him any further than the next county over. A love story held together with tape, like the glasses, peeling in the summer sun. Candy corn at her feet, like stray bullets in a gang war, in a music video that will last the rest of her life. A baby under each arm, pacing east and west, and a drive-by that goes in circles leading nowhere, always in rivalry with possibility. Maybe the old owner of the shirt fed the hungry, danced in an empty swimming pool, and swore there was music that nobody else could hear. Or maybe she actually saw who killed Tupac and Biggie both and never said a word, because there was peace in just letting things go, like the boy who placed the shirt over her shoulders as she shivered, taking what she hadn't offered to begin with. Because when you wash out the blood stains, all you're left with is your own heartbreak, standing on your own front lawn, wearing someone else's dream, shrunken down so many times with wrinkles that you can never quite smooth out, until you're almost invisible, with a snow cone melting down your arm, in the sun, bleeding red, white, and blue, as a single sock fresh out of the dryer sticks to your belly, and that's the best part of your day. I haven't done this in a while, so my throat Not quite as used to it as it normally is, but all right. Back in there's a play called The House of Yes, and back in the late '90s, Parker Posey was in the film adaptation, and she was my dream crush at the moment. And so I went to see this movie, but I loved to get fried chicken at this place called Chicken Noodle, so I put it in my pockets, and the odor was like wafting out of there. But instead of yelling at me, people were like, "Oh, where did you get that chicken?" and so I wrote this tiny little poem. It's called A Fried Chicken Sandwich in the House of Yes. Everyone in the theater looks at you with envy. With your oversized pockets, holding a fried chicken sandwich close to your heart. Like the warm hands of a lover with a flower pinned in her hair. You know, fried chicken may make you fat, but it'll never leave you. So, all right. Read a few more poems out of here. Bill and I were having a discussion in this restaurant. I have a poem called Bob Creeley Was an Asshole, but I'm not going to read that, but I felt the need to mention that because everyone says it's true. But, all right. This is, I used to read when I was a teenager in this place called the Teatro Cafe outside of Pittsburgh. And there was a man there, he'd read the same poem every time, and it just would end with, "Hey Jude, hey Jude, hey Judas," which is the only part of the poem that I actually remember. But I wrote this for him. It's called Poem for Frank Klaypeck in 1994. I wanted the girls to look at me the way they looked at you. It was such a waste. You never even noticed that your poems about the Beatles were better than the Beatles themselves. You had everything. A song without music, a hot cup of coffee, red wine from a dented flask given to you by an ex-girlfriend in 1968, a torn t-shirt for the British invasion bought in a used record store in Pittsburgh, and girls lining up to brush the snow off the edges of your coat. Just read a few more poems here. Let me see. This poem, I wrote this when my friend Jenny got pregnant, and it's essentially about like how all the girls I knew that I grew up with, some of them I dated, some of them I didn't, how they were all finally like grown-ups, and I had stayed exactly the same. You know, and this poem called Poem for the Mothers. Some of you dead, some hit by buses on urgent street corners, some with skin as yellow as a dying tulip, some with stomachs still growing in a race with history, glowing with beauty, as the leaves blow with abandon, as each step leads you further from the past, and somehow you've gotten younger, and I've aged 1,000 years, just standing here in front of the tree outside your house, as the leaves blow loud like invisible trumpets, with their rat-a-tat-tat on the siding of every heart, a faded tattoo carved into every tree-lined street. Every memory was once bright before it became a dying star. And let's see here. Oh yeah, I'll read this little poem. I'm going to read 2 more poems after this and call it a day, but thank you everyone for being here. And maybe I'll be able to find the one poem I was looking for. I'll read this tiny poem, which where I live in an artist community, and we had this girl there she's a lovely person, but she's not the sharpest tool in the shed. And so, like, we had a group of, like, feminist authors come down, which is awesome. And so I'm talking to this girl, and I'm like talking about the violent femmes. And she was like, oh, I didn't think they were violent. and I'm just like, the fucking band, man. But really, she's a sweetheart. But I wrote this poem. It's called Painting Flowers with a Closed Fist, or The Violent Femmes Are Not a Feminist Group. And maybe they are. I can't, maybe they are feminists, who knows. But, okay. This is not a revolution you were meant to remember the words to. Overhead, the sun looks like a blister in western Pennsylvania in 1985. Painting flowers with a closed fist lacks imagination, and it is no way to learn how to dance. And I had a few poems in here about my friend Matthew Haynes' terrible driving skills, but we'll save those. I was going to read this poem that I wrote for my dad, if I can find it, who I'm going to see this weekend. Maybe I will, maybe I won't. Well, that's what happens when you don't prepare. So, all right. I guess, oh, here we go. When I was in elementary school, John Cougar Mellencamp came and he sang in my elementary school cafeteria. And I think I was 8 or 9, and because his niece happened to go to the same school, which is the only reason he was there. But I wrote this, but it's called Trailer Park Song 1984. John Cougar Mellencamp sings a song about peace in the elementary school cafeteria as his niece beams with pride. My father fixes a local newscaster's car in the snow for $5 an hour to feed a family of 4. His knuckle busted open, face covered in blood and grease, like war paint in a losing battle. In our house, it's difficult to have any fight left in you when the spaghetti is low. But peace is not the same thing as peace of mind. Let's see here. And I definitely know which poem out of here I want to do, if I can find it. And I will close with this. I know this is in here. Here we go. When I was a kid, I don't know, 7 or 8, there was an older boy in my neighborhood who was in high school who would walk all of the younger kids home. And, he listened to metal music. He played Dungeons and Dragons. And my mother was like, well, he worships Satan. Which, it's cool now to play Dungeons and Dragons, which is completely different. When I was a kid, you were a Satan worshiper, like if you were into that. And so I wrote this poem for him and all of the negativity surrounding him that was unfair from people, including my own mother. So I just read this, and thank you again. This is called For Paul Who Worships Satan and Dungeons and Dragons. I never saw you dismember any animals or play a record backwards to send our young souls to a dimension filled with fire. As far as I know, you didn't even have a vinyl collection. All I remember is you being kind to the younger kids, walking them up from the bus stop to make sure they got home all right. but it was a crime to be quiet in 1984. Maybe if you'd spent less time smoking in the woods behind the trailer park, maybe you should have combed your hair or not worn a faded Black Sabbath t-shirt on the bus without regret as you stared out the window. Maybe you should have gone to church or listened when the news talked about how a fantasy game took lives. As if war in suburbia didn't suck the air right out of the room all by themselves. The least you could have done is finish high school and hang yourself from a tree in a different neighborhood. All I'll say about that is true fucking story. Thank you, guys.
John Dorsey, everybody, you can do better than that. Come on, man. But Jim Eves started Calling All Poets in March of 1999 at the Howland Cultural Center in Beacon, New York. I joined it in the early 2000s, and CAPS has grown from a once local venue to a traveling road show for a number of years. Along the way, we picked up Glenn Werner and Greg Carell as CAPS technical guru. Calling All Poets hit the internet, streaming CAPS events, and became an international venue for all of us. Jim is a writer of scattered thoughts that some call poetry. He is most proud of Calling All Poets and those that have helped him build a program that many poets in the Hudson Valley call home. My friend, my brother from another mother, Mr. Jim Eve. Come on up, buddy.
All right, good evening, everyone. I don't read a lot, and I write a lot, but I don't write very long. I like writing short things. So what I'm going to hammer you with tonight is some haiku, simiyu, and tankas, okay, that I've written over the last 9 years or something. And I'm glad that John was up here and was nice and energetic and read some great poetry, but I'm afraid, I might find somebody sleeping on me, and that's okay. Anyway, I read a lot of haiku, and I read a lot of haiku, and I found that most of the haikus that I read have no titles, and I title everything, so I'm going to give you a title, and I think it'll kind of give you a little bit of help into what I might be writing as a scattered thought. And then on the other hand, half the time, I don't know what I'm writing as a scattered thought, so, do the best you can with it. Overwhelmed. I believe in love in all of its mystery. Its mass strains my heart. Candidates debate. And that first one was from 2015. Candidates debate. The politicians' election time rhetoric, more lies and fiction. Night on the beach at Ship Bottom. The sandcastles stand alone on a moonlight beach. Serenity's home. The longest season. Summers are short. Autumn is even shorter. Winter freezes time. You don't have to clap. These are so short. Wait to the end. Wait to the end. And you could boo even after that, Snakes in the grass. Serpent-like envy raises its head from a coil. Jealousy strikes first. Springs, winter. Spring has not sprung. Winter hangs on with talons made of icicles. Foliage roundup. Leaves fall silently, some dancing on a slight breeze, give a performance before landing on the ground to be raked in piles and bagged. And some of these haikus and everything are a little bit longer. The thing I like about tankas is that if I can't fit a haiku into that 5-7-5, I got 2 more lines, 7-7, that I can make something up and work it that way. November 10th, 2018, 1. In a mixture of sun and gray clouds emerges a shower of snow. Intense snow flurries zigzag in the steady wind. Tree branches swat them. During the shower, the sun chose to shine brightly. Snowflakes took refuge. November 10, 2018. 2. Anticipating the drop in temperatures, the ice man cometh. The short space between fall and winter is chaos. Weathermen tremble. When winter gets here, thoughts of summer will arrive with demands for warmth. Character of clouds. Shape-shifting clouds patch pale blue sky with many shapes, smoothly streaming by to dissipate in thin air, never again to appear. Rerun. I see it coming, the new year with a new start. It's been there before. I've been there before. It's like a TV rerun played the same time each winter. First haiku 2019. Midnight alarm sounds, a new day, new year, no change. Morning darkness laughs. The beef, not. The red wine is prime, the medium rare steak divine. Pity the bovine, sacrifice for the fine dining, to soothe the gluttonous me. Sunday, 4:30 a.m. Early morning rise, dark skies has no alibi for a bad day start. Early morning rise, dark sky gives no starry clue how this day unfolds. Early morning rise, dark sky like a sponge absorbs my gathering angst. Damn the jam. You guys know Mountain Jam, have you heard of it, all that? Oh, Mountain Jam was taken from Hunter, thank you, and moved to Bethel. Mountain Jam has moved. Bethel Woods Art and Music is no Mountain Jam. Yeah. Miss Kiss. My moi fell short. She turned her face suddenly. It fell at her feet. Couple more. This has no title. It has been removed with me for 68 years, the knee gone in hours. Original equipment, what God made, is now man-made. Five, 7, 5 lines. Somewhere a haiku is hiding within my mind. The fog in my head spoils the search to reveal it. Secondary thoughts seek to expose the haiku. I hold pen in hand, hot with anticipation, yet nothing comes forth except 575 lines, unlikely forming this out-of-character poem of no real substance. And I'm going to read this one. So this is the next to the last one, and I'm going to read something longer, but fitting for my ending. Cross-pollination. The butterfly bush, pink, white, and purple flowers, wait the swallowtail. Yet the hungry bumblebee could care less when it arrives. And I'm going to end with this. And I like this, and it's a longer piece, and it actually is not 575 at all. But it's fitting that I close with this. Musing about the Beat Generation. At times, I'm so Apple, looking for action with no description, not certain what my axe is. I sustain myself just doing, but baby, I exist. At times, I'll take a blow, losing myself in jazz sides on the box in my pad. Or daydreaming, I'm with Hetty Jones up on the Casbah. Hetty would kick me to the curb because I wasn't a cat or hipster. Drag City, baby, it was all good though. I knew I was Clyde, so I tried to cool it. Daydreaming about Hetty would only lend myself to wig, which my wig couldn't handle. I'd often wonder what it would be like to have a riff with Ginsberg and Kerouac. I'd probably flip, and my wailing would more than likely be a drag, something they wouldn't dig, forcing me to abruptly cut. Besides, I wouldn't want to be a victim of a double-barreled put-on. When you're square, you're square. It's time to fall out. I'm out of here. It's been a gas, Daddy-O. Thank you.
All right. All right. Yeah, we've been doing this thing for a while now. I want to thank you all for hanging in there with us too. So, and everybody online too. Thank you. Our third reader, man, we haven't seen Rebecca in a million years. It's like this whole chasm of shit went on, and all of a sudden. Rebecca Shimada is the author of several full-length collections, including Falling Forward, Sunny Outside Press, Cadillac Men, NYQ Books, Waiting at the Dead End Diner, Boston Dog Press, Our One-Way Street, NYQ Books, Something Like Forgiveness, a single epic poem accompanied by collage art by Hasho McCreesh, Stubborn Mule Press, and Sentence by NYQ. She is the co-editor at Trailer Park Quarterly. She received her MA in Poetics from San Francisco State University and her BA from SUNY New Paltz. Hey, I know that place. She lives in New York's Hudson Valley, like all really cool people do. You can find her online at RebeccaShimada.com. Always a pleasure, Rebecca Shimada.
Thank you so much. It's such a pleasure to be out after everything that's gone on in the world. So I'm going to start. I always joke that like when John reads before me, I'm like, fuck, like where do you go after, right? Like what do you do now? So I'm kind of screwed and I'm okay with that. Yeah. So I'm going to read some pieces from my new collection. It's called Sentence and it's New York Quarterly Press. I think the premise behind everything is the idea that I think that something we need to look at as human beings is what is imprisoning us. So like, usually it's fear, right? I mean, so that's kind of what I was touching upon, but like on a more personal level. So this one's called, Then He Begged Me to Go Back with Him to Rescue the Others. And these are really depressing, but I'll end with something kind of funny, I promise, because you gotta do that, right? Then he begged me to go back with him to rescue the others. The essence of a crime never makes the news, isn't written about in the autopsy report or entered into evidence. The true crime spreads like ripples after a rock skips across still water. The lake by the house where he killed her. Think about the mothers, the one who carried the murdered and the one who carried the murderer. Imagine cradling the weight of their losses. Then there is the question of forgiveness. A dozen paper rafts left on the surface, in hopes one may make it to the other side. The rock thrown is forgotten long before the water settles, like prisoners descending into the murky depths of the system. Every inmate is someone's ocean, child, sibling, cousin, parent. So is every victim. A rock is an overused metaphor. For someone who is strong, I am not a rock. I am the you in the true crime. If you were brazen enough to ask how my brother could have committed such a heinous act, I would never discuss mental illness, even though I really, really want to understand. Instead, I will tell you that when he was 8 and I was 15, I spent $22 of my babysitting money to win him a goldfish at the Fireman's Carnival. And then on our way home, with tears in his eyes, he knelt beside a small pond, opened up the plastic bag, and set the prisoner free. So this second one, I'm like organized, but I'm still like, I fumble through things. Like I have little numbers, and like I can't read them. It's like so funny. This one's called Visiting. There are losses more heartbreaking than death, like waiting for morning count to end so you can walk through the metal detectors to embrace your youngest child under the scrutiny of armed guards. When you get there, you can't remember the conversation you rehearsed during your 4-hour drive to see him because you are lost in how his skin sank further below his cheekbones. How, just how? What can you say when he tells you he passes time playing cards for push-ups with a cellmate who is serving time for rape? His antipsychotic meds give him the shakes, but he has read 4 books from cover to cover. When you call him by his name, he looks around as if you're talking to someone else. Before becoming a number, he was your baby. You will never hug him outside of designated visiting areas, like this one, where you watch him because his stomach, oh, I'm so sorry, I'm like skipping lines, where you watch him devour vending food machine until he vomits because his stomach has become accustomed to emptiness. I tell you not to go so often. What good can come from secondhand suffering or shackling yourself to someone else's sentence? On your way home, you pull over a dozen times because of intervals of torrential rain. But you will go back next week and the week after. You can't accept he could have done something so disconcerting, even though he did. The only time I see you smile now is when you tell him the story about when you forgot his lunchbox on his first day of kindergarten, and he told you, "Don't worry, Mommy, I'll go home and get it. You wait right here for me. I'll be right back." So I'm working on this project. Poetic License. It's in Albany. It's a collaboration between Hudson Valley Writers Guild and UAG. So my fiance actually is doing the painting for this. It's called On Like Geese. It's a short piece, and it's pretty cool. So it should be around September or so in Albany. the show, and it's a whole bunch of poets and artists that collaborate. So it's called Unlike Geese. And my fiance's name is Jason Martinez, and he's an artist in the Rensselaer area. A V of geese fly low overhead as I dislodge wet grass from the mower. Today is your 363rd day incarcerated. Unlike humans, if one goose is injured, the others will stay with it until it dies or rejoins the flock. Most who love you have written you off, but I wait to restart the mower and watch the skein cut through the steel blue sky. And this one's called The Yellow Jackets. Now I'm going to read one more from this piece, and I'm going to get funny, maybe. Not really that funny. I'm not really that funny. The Yellow Jackets. So far, during the heavy rain, 37 yellow jackets, nested in our exterior wall, have made their way inside in search of warmth and light. They clumsily circle bulbs as if wildflowers, while I swat them down with rolled up newspaper. This is the second autumn of my mother's incarceration. Well, what I mean is the 393rd day my brother has spent behind bars. When I suggest she donates his clothes to Goodwill, she tears up and asks, "But what will he wear when he comes home?" His 2.5-decade sentence has not sunk in yet. She doesn't understand why I won't call an exterminator, but am willing to give away perfectly good clothes. What if they sting the baby? She cries while holding my infant daughter tightly to her chest. You know she could be allergic. She worries out loud. She won't let go. She needs to keep someone safe. It frustrates her how I've wasted all afternoon trying to figure out their point of entry. Then how I accept that sometimes what we want to stay outside makes its way in anyway. And this is going to be the last one from this book. It's called The Third Fall of His Incarceration. I'm on my way to visit my little brother at the maximum security correctional facility that he calls home. The wind steals dying leaves from trees, brass, copper, saffron, maize, goldenrod, burgundy, the color of the sweats he wears when he sits across from me in the visiting area. It's raining. It's always raining when I go to see him. But the foliage is near peak, and sometimes when I look into his eyes, I can see the person I thought he was. When the guard tells me to open my mouth and lift my tongue, I spit out a pile of leaves. Don't jump into that, our father would yell at us, unless you're going to rake it all back up. We waited for our father to go so we could run and jump into it over and over again. The rustling of leaves sound like someone trying to warn. Sk, 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 schizophrenia, schizophrenia. So I lived in Kingston forever, so that's why I know so many people here. And 3 of the books that I wrote, and they're all Kingston. One is called Cadillac Men, and I owned a pool hall, in Kingston that failed miserably during the recession. So it was quite the experience. But this is a true story, and of course the names changed because you can't use people's names, right? Then I'll get in trouble. So this one's called Table of Truth. Mikey Meatball's been kicked out of every pool hall he's ever set foot in. He's forged checks, harassed patrons, hustled a small fortune, lost a small fortune. Once he repeatedly rammed his car into a guy's truck over a botched bet. He's been locked up and drugged up. He's blamed it all on Agent Orange. In Vietnam, he was an officer. In Jersey, he owned a billiard hall. In Brooklyn, he owned an Italian delicatessen, and they called him Papa Meatball. In Texas, he played a man for his Cadillac and won, but totaled it on his way back east. On Haight-Ashbury, he sold a hookah to a hippie for 10 grand, claiming it was Jerry Garcia's. In Connecticut, he siphoned gas from some fish's car before winning his wedding band on the table. He's a regular in the police blotter, most recently for whipping his dick out at a bagel shop owner for skimping him on cream cheese. Once he convinced some kid he shot like shit because he was using a left-handed pool cue. Last week, he told me he saw my husband pick up a prostitute on Broadway just to see my jaw drop. Instead, I responded, well, at least he's getting some. So like I said, I lived in Kingston. I lived on, like, kind of by the high school, so I guess you'd call that uptown, kind of? No, downtown. Not mid, would it be midtown? Yeah. So anyway, I lived by the high school. And so this whole book, Our One-Way Street, was about Staple Street, which is where I lived. And it's about the neighborhood that I lived in. And some of you guys know Lee. I called her Crazy Lee. Yeah, Crazy Lee. One of the really amazing characters that was also a poet who lived right down the street from me. So she's in this poem. I have to say that because I have so much, she passed on recently, but I had, a while now. But I had so much respect for her, and she lived down the road from me, and she was like the awesomest neighbor you could ever ask for because she made my life so happy because she like gave me material for writing. So I wish I still had her around. This is Our One-Way Street. We let our children ride their bikes on our one-way street at dusk, while we sit on dilapidated porches discussing how our houses are worth half of what we paid for them, and make bets on whose roof will go first. We all plan to fix them up, but found out money is the only thing that leaves this neighborhood fast. Out of the road, we yell when we see headlights. I run into the street each time to make sure drivers slow down. My neighbor to the right, Terry, tells me for the 20th time how while on his bike he was hit by a car when he was my kid's age. Rolled over the hood, got back up, rode home. Look, he says, holding up his hand, wiggling 4 fingers, I'm fine. Patty from across the street, donning a raggedy pink bathrobe, asks, did you really go to graduate school? With the same tone you'd ask a coworker if they're banging the boss. Shying away from a response, I go inside to get a box of ice pops. Wine and beer in big red plastic cups appear in our hands. Someone brings out yesterday's newspaper to show us an article about another neighbor busted for growing pot plants in his backyard. It is too dark for the kids to see the chalk borders I drew on the asphalt earlier, and we are buzzed. So the kids take advantage, moving further and further away from us. Their expanding eclipses make me feel guilty about accepting another cup of beer. Crazy Kay, that's Lee. Crazy Kay, the old lady who lives closest to the dead end sign, strolls by with 2 of her stinky old dogs, stops in the street, screeches, who started the party without me? As our kids circle around her, she complains about parking tickets and growing numbers of sinkholes in the city. If I didn't know better, I would say that this city is trying to swallow me whole. So that's for Lee. And I'm going to read, I worked at the diner that, I don't forget, the one that got closed down, it's torn down. When I was writing this book, it's about waitressing. I waitressed for a decade, and I had to go back to work as a waitress because I kind of forgot what it was like. And I was like, I had my oldest daughter who's now 15, so I'd go to teach, and then I'd come home and I'd waitress at this diner. And I was like, wow, how the hell did I do this when I was younger? Because this totally sucks. But this is a book I wrote about the experience of waitressing, which sometimes I still can't believe I did it. This one's called No One Cares, and I think in diners, no one does care at all. And this will be the last poem I read. No one cares. No one cares what you think, Rick screams after I tell him the coleslaw is spoiled. He doesn't care it is tinted yellow and stinks. He still scoops heaping piles onto plates. Rick's been a fixture here for over a decade, as permanent as grease accumulating on kitchen walls. Finally, after 2 years, he calls me by my real name instead of hey, legs, or yo, college girl. When I refuse to take out the plate, he calls to Jolene, who he says is used to serving rotten merchandise. But even she refuses. No way, Rick, you're gonna kill somebody. Rick shrugs and says something about population control before screaming 86 the coleslaw, thanks to these two twats from the health department. And even though he yells this, no one seems to have really heard. So, and they still ate the coleslaw. So, thank you so much, Mike. Thank you, Jim. Thank you so much.
Thank you, John Dorsey, Jimmy. Before we set the ship a sail, let me just give you some updates on what the hell's going on. Our next event, because we do 3 events a month, so on July 20th, that's our 32nd anniversary. On July 20th, Chris Collins, that's our Be the Feature, Zoom only, at 7 p.m. He will be our featured reader. That's an expanded open mic on Zoom only. And on August 10th, we will be back here with Sharon Israel and her husband, and they formed a group called Orphic Mix. And I totally forgot to write down who else is going to be here next week. So, and then on August 4th, which hopefully will be live and Zoom, but it might just be Zoom only until we get into Unison. It's going to be Nathan Smith, Mega Sood, and Estelle Bajou. So if you can join us on Zoom or come by live, please do. I want to thank again John Dorsey, Jim Eve, Rebecca Shemeda. It's been a long time. Thank you all. We're going to do an open mic afterwards, so if you want to hang out, please do. Thanks, live stream. See you later.